बजट 2023 माइक्रो स्मॉल मीडियम एंटरप्राइजेस के लिए काफ़ी अहम रहा है। आज के बजट के अनाउंसमेंट पर बातचीत करने के लिए हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं लक्ष्मी एम वेंकटेशन, फाउंडिंग एंड मैनेजिंग ट्रस्टी, भारतीय युवा शक्ति ट्रस्ट BYST। थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग अस मैम। लक्ष्मी जी, हम सबसे पहले आपसे यही समझना चाहेंगे, बजट में जो अनाउंसमेंट्स हुई हैं स्पेसिफिकली माइक्रो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स के लिए, विच आर ह्यूज इन नंबर्स एंड अक्रॉस द लेंथ एंड ब्रेथ ऑफ इंडिया, आप किस तरह से देख रहे हैं? क्योंकि माइक्रो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स के अपने चैलेंजेस रहते हैं, ये बजट किस तरह से उन्हें सपोर्ट कर रहा है, उनकी ग्रोथ को?
This budget has been extremely good for everybody. So there's a lot of people who are happy, whether it is the individual or whether it is the MSME and then whether it's the micro. So I think first I would like to say that it is a happy place to be. Having said that, the question is exactly what are the ways in which, as you said, there are over 6.3 crore MSMEs, of which 94% are micro units, which have got less than 20 lakhs and only less than 3 or 4 employees. So the question is, how do you really support them? And if you ask about the budget, I think two things stand out. One, let's take the skilling part. In the skilling, definitely they talked about international skilling centers and skilling centers with technology, AI, and so on, which is very good. But if you are talking about the micro units of the kind that we are talking about, which is in small towns in rural areas as well as in the more underprivileged areas of the city, then you're talking about what is it that they can take from the skilling? What do they need? I like very much the apprenticeship program as a concept.
Okay.
47 lakh people have been, they're aiming at, the budget aims at, in order to support them with an apprenticeship so that they will learn about after the skilling part. Because very often you have skilled unemployed as opposed to unskilled unemployed. So the skilling doesn't necessarily solve the employment issue. And I would love to see this 47 lakh people who are being given this opportunity to do an apprenticeship. If this, and I'm sure it's going to work well as a pilot, let us now move it to 4.7 crore people, because there are so many micro units which first need to know what it means to set up a unit before they do. Otherwise, they fail in the first 2 years.
Yeah. So as you're mentioning, skilling is very crucial because many newer skills are required now. Many old skills are becoming redundant with the changing times. इसमें specifically industry and academia, how can they work closely and try and support the micro entrepreneurs?
Micro entrepreneurs very often are very good at understanding what kind of businesses they need to set up in their own local area. So if you go and ask, for example, we have someone who found crabapple in a remote part of tribal Orissa.
Yeah.
And when he wanted to start something, the bank said crabapple ice cream. I've never heard of that, and you can't do that. But he managed to do that, and because we supported him, identified the idea, and he was able to do that. So the best thing that the ecosystem can do, whether it's corporates, whether it's academia, whether it's even your district industry commission,
Yeah.
whether it's your ITI, whoever is in the ecosystem of the micro entrepreneur, first, why don't we listen to the idea that the entrepreneur has and see what are the ways in which we can make it happen? During the pandemic, one of the young people that we get, he was only 24 years old. He did a simulation software for race car driving. Now, everybody said that that's not going to sell. He's now in crores in less than 2 years. In 43 countries he has been exporting. So what it really means is that we should think about how skilling can be taken to the grassroots level, how skilling can be matched. So I believe the corporates and the academics can play a dual role, not just provide skilling, but provide mentoring. We believe that in this, I would like to point out that there is a lot of Skill India, Stand Up India, Startup India. We launched something called Mentoring India, and
Wonderful.
We believe that Mentoring India is the glue that brings all these other Indias together in order to help this young person, because to be skilled is one thing, but to know how to deploy the skill in the local marketplace, that is very important.
Great, ma'am. So, ma'am, the MSMEs, if we talk about over the last few years, specifically during the pandemic, they were amongst the worst hit. And उन्होंने वहाँ से bounce back करने की कोशिश की है. हमने देखा कि बाउंस बैक के बाद अभी पिछले दिनों कमोडिटी प्राइसेस, रॉ मटेरियल प्राइसेस व स्काई रॉकेटिंग, जिससे ऑपरेशंस में इम्पैक्ट हुआ. फिर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स मूव हुए हैं अपवर्ड, उससे भी उनके बिजनेस ऑपरेशंस में चैलेंजेस रहे हैं. देन ग्लोबल हेडविंड्स हैव बीन देयर. ये बजट किस तरह से सपोर्टिव होगा फॉर देम टू टैप न्यूअर अपॉर्चुनिटीज?
Even prior to the budget, the emergency credit line guarantee scheme had been already announced to say they will extend it. There are other countries which are saying that they will be able to support people who have been hit by the pandemic for an indefinite period. So I would like to see whether the emergency credit line guarantee scheme, we don't announce it year by year, because then there is always uncertainty for the micro entrepreneurs. Why don't we say, as long as it takes, come back? That way we will preserve the unit, we will preserve the jobs, and there will be a way for the entrepreneur to plan also. So I would like to see the ECLGS scheme welcome that it is till 24, but can we give a little bit more certainty by expanding it and making it grow? Another part of it is, when you talk about the pandemic, that is just one of the disruptions for the supply chain and for many of the small units. Others are coming. What about the climate change and the whole ESG compliances? What is that going to do to the supply chain? So I look at that the emergency credit line not as something that was specific to the pandemic, but if there is a way in which we can look at all the new challenges that are going to come in the environment for micro entrepreneurs and say, can we put together a system so that we will be able to help them bridge that?
Okay. So with that, I would like to know your views on sustainable manufacturing. उसमें किस तरह से क्लीन, ग्रीन सोर्सेज की तरफ माइक्रो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स मूव कर सकते हैं, जो ट्रेडिशनली they have their own style of operating and manufacturing, so that they move ahead with changing times and are able to not just grow but survive also.
When we talk about mindset change, very often I like to think that the mindset of the micro entrepreneur is very open. It is the mindset of the ecosystem that is providing the support that very often puts barriers, saying you can do this and you cannot do this, whether it is through fiscal constraints or whether it is through constraints in the infrastructure and so on and so forth. I'll give you an example. If you talk about the quality movement that came about in the 90s, the quality movement started with the large corporates, and there was a lot of enthusiasm and support and credit and everything flowing into it. But very soon you found that the supply chain, all the MSMEs, leave alone the micro units, were unable to be participating in this quality movement. I would like us not to make that same mistake when it comes to the ESG. Can we proactively think in terms of finding a way in which to integrate? If you talk to the micro entrepreneurs and if you say, look, if you were to conserve your raw material in this way, this is how much your bottom line will be better off, and this is how you'll earn more revenues and profits. I don't think they're going to object to that. So it is the way, you're not going to tell them and say, save the planet. Absolutely. You are going to tell them saying, bottom line, this is going to help you. Another way of saying is, if you use LED bulbs instead of regular this thing, this is how much you will save in your energy. You can put it across in such a way that it has a lot of appeal to the micro entrepreneurs from their own standpoint.
And maybe they can also be told, if you move ahead on this path, there'll be incentives for you.
Yeah, exactly. If you can tell them that this is a way in which you will integrate them into the value chain, believe me, there will be no resistance. So the mindset is not of the micro entrepreneurs. Very often the mindset is of the ecosystem.
Great, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us on this budget day and sharing your valuable views and what it really means for the MSME industry. Thank you very much. तो MSMEs को लेकर आखिर बजट में आज जो घोषणाएं की गई हैं उसकी हम विभिन्न एंगल्स को टटोल रहे हैं, समझ रहे हैं और आपके समक्ष रख रहे हैं. अभी के लिए इतना ही. थैंक यू.